Derek, I found something we need to watch.
Yeah, hold. Can you just hold just 1 minute? Okay, thank you. Can't you see I'm on the phone?
Hurry up.
Uh-huh. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a $2 rewind fee. Well, Be Kind Rewind isn't just a cute slogan, it's store policy. No, I understand you're busy, but the next person who rented Con Air didn't want to watch it backwards. Nicolas Cage's hair is confusing enough in the right direction.
Another satisfied customer?
Yeah. How hard is it to rewind a tape? Anyways, what did you want to show me?
Okay, have you ever heard of Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue?
Sure have. Never watched it before, but I've heard some stories.
I've watched it, but I barely remember this one. Can we please watch it?
Okay, yeah, just based on the cover alone. I mean, look at how many cartoon characters are on there, and they're all teaching you about why you shouldn't be doing drugs, and your parents liked that they were teaching you about drugs. That's fascinating. We have to get into that one.
All right, popping her in.
Well, you look like three fine lads. You know, I might have something here you'd like to try. Something to make you feel real good.
There's myriad wild and wonderful ways to say no. No thanks. No way.
Better learn a few and take 'em wherever you go.
No thanks, no sir.
If your pal says let's get high,
Here's a practical reply.
Go ahead, let fly, spit right in his eye and say no.
There's a myriad international ways to say no.
Those drugs are so boring.
All around the world, the smart guys are giving us dope.
I'm in training for football.
People didn't say just say no.
And they tell me that works fine. Cause the bottom line's to show me trying to say no. Now you could say beat it, get lost, get out of my face with that stuff.
but that could be tactless. You may prefer cool, like this.
Man, what a trip.
A trip. Ha. Literally.
Get it?
Get it. Get it. Get it. Drugs.
So, if you're not familiar, if you've never watched this, here's a basic description. This is an iconic 1990 animated special that brought together beloved cartoon characters from various television series to create an educational film addressing teens and drug use. This unique crossover combined elements of comedy and drama to deliver important guidance messages to young viewers during a time when animated characters held significant cultural influence.
Yeah, significant. That's probably the correct term to use there. This seems like it's a significant team up. You know, obviously there's been team ups before,
Oh, yeah.
but on this scale, maybe there were team ups as important as this. But were there team ups as important as this that also mentioned crystal meth in them before this?
Crystal meth, and they got a very, very beautiful introductory statement from the president at the time.
Yes. This, I know I've mentioned it many times before, but you know that SNL bit with Bill Hader and he's playing Stefan
Oh, yeah.
and he's running through all the clubs and their crazy shit? Like, I just feel like this is just something that he would run down. It's like, have you ever seen Cartoon All-Stars? It has everything. It has Alf. It has Garfield. It has Alf trying to eat Garfield. It has crystal meth. It has the bushes,
Yeah,
the
totally.
senior bushes, Barbara and George and their little dog. It's like the list keeps going on. Is this real? Kind of feels like a fever dream.
Apparently, it was a very important thing. It was given this unprecedented level of support, airing simultaneously on all major networks, so like ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and many different cable channels. And like I said, there was this introduction that was recorded by President George H.W. Bush and the First Lady Barbara Bush.
Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue is the powerful story of a teenager dealing with drug and alcohol abuse.
Some of your favorite cartoon characters will help you understand how drugs and alcohol can ruin your life. So watch the program. Talk about it with your family.
And make the right decision.
Watching it today seemed a little more on the heartfelt side, but when you're a kid, most of this jibber jabber means nothing to you. You have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that much like on the level of the D.A.R.E program, this might have actually done a significant amount of damage, not in scaring kids about the dangers of drugs and drug use, but in giving kids almost a crash course on what types of drugs there are out there. It's like, I think it was well intentioned, but the cartoon characters that they're pulling from different series here are aimed at very young kids,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into the representation in a minute or so, but I don't know, when we're bringing like the Muppet Babies in with, the Chipmunks, this isn't being aimed at like 12 and 13-year-olds. It's like
This is very
6
young
and
kids.
7-year-olds are watching those shows. I would hazard to guess that they're learning about what marijuana is thanks to this special. They didn't know what marijuana was before that kid opened the box under his bed.
Right. And I would almost argue to say, and this is where I thought you were going to go with it, this is actually teaching kids that maybe using marijuana is going to make these cartoons that they love come to life.
Yeah, wait a minute. So you're telling me if I take some money and I go buy some crystal meth, my Pooh Bear is going to come to life? Sign me up, buddy.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a trip for a fun time.
So before we get any further, we will discuss the plot. And before we get to that, I'd like to state right here, if you're planning on watching this short film, do so now. Come back. There will be possible spoilers. You've been warned.
You'll have a greater appreciation for everything that we're going to talk about, all of the absurdities.
Oh my God.
As well.
So good.
So this is the one time, and it's a very short commitment. I think it was like 22, 26 minutes, something like that. It's not very long. You could easily go watch it, come back and listen to this podcast, and be done with both in like maybe a little over an hour. That seems like a great way to spend an hour.
Absolutely. So the plot follows a teenage boy named Michael who is struggling with drug abuse, while his younger sister Corey enlists the help of her cartoon friends who come to life from various merchandise in her room to intervene and show him the dangers of drug use in the form of a fantasy journey. That, in a nutshell, is Cartoon All-Stars to the rescue. Do you have any prior personal experience to this little film?
No, none. Yeah, I've always heard rumblings of it. I never took the time to actually pop it in and watch it. I knew that there was a whole big, crossover Marvel Cinematic Universe style team up event going on, but didn't know the extent of how many characters were in it, and not just appearing in it. Like, think of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where there's a lot of characters that appear just in non-speaking roles.
Oh, yeah.
I assumed that this might have had some of that, where there would just be a lot of characters, but they only got a handful of voice actors, so you'd just see a lot of them silent. No, that's not the case here. I was actually surprised that every single character that comes in and makes a cameo actually has a speaking role and has lines, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the characters here, really quick before I get into my experience, things from Looney Tunes, Smurfs, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Muppet Babies, The Real Ghostbusters, DuckTales, Alf the Animated Series, The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Garfield, and of course TMNT. Quite the lineup. I watched this myself. It had to have been like, oh man, I'm not exactly sure of the year, probably 94, 95. I remember being very young. I was in school during Red Ribbon Week. It's a yearly campaign to raise awareness about drug and violence prevention. I remember barely paying attention. There was pizza involved, so like I was eating food and I really wasn't looking at the screen very much. And I think the only time I really paid attention was when like my favorite characters popped up.
The Smurfs.
Yeah, Smurfs. Maybe the DuckTales crew. I do remember liking all of these characters, and like when they would pop up, it was kind of like I was reliving the Name That Pokemon meme, where you're like, oh, it's fucking Pikachu, but like with all these other properties. That was a very long time ago. It certainly was an eye-opener watching it again as an adult, because you're not picking up on all these little things. You don't know what marijuana is or what fucking crack and all these different things are when you're a very young child. And watching it back as a 36-year-old man is like, whoa, buddy.
I just feel like, I mentioned a little bit ago how I feel like it could have done more harm than good. And I feel like that's a fantastic case in point. You are like patient zero here. Not saying that you ever did crack or smack or angel dust, but if you're not paying attention and you're only tuning in between bites of pizza when your favorite characters are popping up, and the only context you're getting out of it is Michelangelo going, "Hey, dude, don't do crack cocaine."
Right.
Like, all you're going to take away is Michelangelo saying the words crack cocaine. Fast forward a few years, and you're in a dimly lit alley, as all teenagers find themselves. And you're there with a drug dealer, face to face, and he goes, "Hey, kid, you want to buy some crack cocaine?" And you go, "Do I know what that is?" And then all of a sudden, like Wayne's World, diddle-doo-doo, 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 that little clip of Michelangelo going, "Crack cocaine," pops into your head, and you're like, well, Michelangelo told me about this once, and I like Michelangelo, so maybe I should buy this crack cocaine in this dimly lit alley now.
Isn't it kind of strange? This is one of the parts that kind of stuck out to me is like just Mikey being the turtle they picked out of the four. Like the most likely person to be doing drugs is telling you not to do them.
Cowabunga, dude! How did you ever get so totally cool?
What am I doing down here?
Like you fell through a radical hole, dude. You could have avoided it, but you weren't thinking. Come to think of it, that's a lot of your problem.
I actually think I like the choice of Michelangelo because it's almost saying, here's the rude, crude party dude. And
he don't do it.
He's partying without doing angel dust or crack cocaine.
See, you flipped that one really nicely. I mean,
Yeah.
he was the most popular turtle at that point in time, so I guess that's why they used him. You know what? I think you flipped the script for me. It works for me again. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'm here to serve drugs. Would you like some?
As long as Mikey's there, yeah, of course I do. But his very brief appearance really there just to guide the protagonist through this like sewer-based nightmare sequence, which feels very surreal.
Well, it's sewer-based, but then he kind of falls into his own body, which is on drugs, a la Magic School Bus. And if I have one critique of this film, it's really a shame that it's not Miss Frizzle that takes him in a school
Magic
bus
School
through
Bus?
his body.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, showing him the effects of drugs on his own body. That would have been the cherry on top. But, Magic School Bus might not have even been around at this point. I don't really know the timeline of these things, but a boy can dream. And my fan-casted remake version, that's what happens in that scene particularly.
So I have like maybe two other little things here that really stuck out to me. And it's mostly as an adult now. Like when I was a kid, I didn't really care. I didn't pick up on how impactful some of the things that happened were, I guess. So as an adult, the few things that did stick out to me was immediately when like my favorite cartoon characters were calling the drugs by their names, right? So like, I think the first one, Simon.
What's that funny smell? I hate to suggest this, but my guess would be marijuana, an unlawful substance used to experience artificial highs.
And like, that kind of got me by surprise.
It was so weird. But you know what? It actually fits for that character because obviously, if we have to catch you guys up, it's Simon the Chipmunk because there are all three chipmunks there. And at first, as he's going down, like sort of explaining what marijuana is and what it does and why it's bad, it sounds like too scripted. You're like, he's reading out of a pamphlet from a nurse's office, like what marijuana is and why it's bad. And then I thought about it for half a second, and I'm like, that is perfectly in character for him. He's being overly analytical, being a nerd, telling everybody exactly what it is in like the most direct, clear, concise way possible. But it is still jarring hearing a chipmunk say marijuana.
And I knew that I was going to be seeing something like that happen, but still, nothing really prepares you for that moment.
Okay, so that was for you. your moment in this that you were like, he shouldn't be saying those words. Mine, the moment for me was when Bugs Bunny makes his first appearance.
You know, kid, you don't look so good. What's this? A joint? So what's the big attraction?
Oh, yeah.
He says the word joint, and I was like, And then in classic Bugs fashion, again, they wrote this to a T for these characters, right? Simon was spot on. And Bugs goes, man, what's the big attraction?
Oh, yeah, it's perfect.
Like, he Bugses it up right after he says a joint, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that's how that would go if Bugs Bunny suddenly stumbled across somebody taking drugs.
Yeah.
I
really love that Bugs, he's kind of the I think he's really the first cartoon character that comes into play with the film's antagonist, the smoke cloud. I guess his name's just Smoke, and he's this cartoon representation of marijuana. And I don't know if you've ever watched Fern Gully before, but if you've ever seen that one before?
Maybe once when I was a kid, but
okay.
I don't. We'll say no.
Okay, so the bad guy in Fern Gully is like this big pollution cloud, I guess, and his name is Hexus. And they just have this kind of uncanny resemblance to them. But anyway, there's a lot of really fun back and forth between Bugs and this Smoke character. It's all in very Looney Tunes fashion. They're inside of this time machine, which I know you wanted to talk about the time machine a little bit.
Oh my God, yes. So again, it's all very classically Looney Tunes, like one joke after another. But yes, Bugs does decide that he's going to take our is he an antagonist or a protagonist? I guess maybe an antagonist, because he's the cause of the problems,
right?
By doing the drug. Anyways, our main kid Bugs decides, I'm gonna take you back in time, and they hop in this time machine. And then this is where like the Looney Tunes bit comes in, is like when they finally go back in time, everything is in black and white, and the kid's like, hey, why is everything in black and white? And Bugs is like, it's the past, I don't make the rules, and stupid shit like that. But the real point in bringing that up is that, to me, and I think you feel the same way, the time machine has a very similar aesthetic sort of to the machine in The Fly, the movie The Fly.
Yeah.
Possibly the original. I don't really recall what it looked like in the 50s version, but specifically in the Jeff Goldblum version.
Right.
It has the same sort of aesthetic,
same vibe,
and look
same
about
aesthetic.
it.
Yeah, it's same shape.
How funny would it have been if they got in there and like Brundlefly's just in there, and he's teaching him also about, like the chemical compounds behind the drugs and what they do to your brain and your body, while he's also like falling apart.
See, that would have been fitting. I feel like that would have worked out pretty well.
That's disgusting.
But anyway, so I'm glad that we touched on the black and white sequences when they go back in time. I wanted to talk about the art style a little bit. So this was animated overseas by Wong Film Productions. The animation's pretty solid.
It Wang? I think it was Wang.
Is it Wang?
I think it is, because I laughed when I read that. I was like, oh man, I'm like 7 years old.
Wang Film. Yeah, I mean, I have it down as Wang. I didn't know how the pronunciation went.
I don't know. I just want to call it Wang because, I'm 12 years old perpetually. But anyways.
So the animation was done overseas by the Wang Film Productions. It looks solid, though. It looks exactly what you'd expect. All the characters, they look like themselves and how they would appear in their own respective cartoons. They do, like you said, this very unsettling contrast in different spots that creates this very powerful moment when they go back in time. Michael is dealing with his troubles with addiction. They show him in some of the most fearful ways. It's all in black and white. Very stark contrast. Pretty impactful, I guess is the word to say. It's interesting.
Yeah. And while we're in that scene, that time traveling black and white scene, did you happen to notice, like, they really only went back, I think it was 2 years.
Yeah, not very far.
Like, the time traveling is traveling 2 years into the past. And this movie, as far as I can tell, it takes place at the current time period. So it was like, 1989, 1990. But it's just so funny to me because it's like once they went into the black and white, everything felt very 50s to me all of a sudden.
Oh yeah,
Like
it did.
Like everything in that particular time travel bit, it just felt like he traveled back decades, even though it was only 2 years, which was weird. And then the thing that really made me laugh out loud and like really made me start thinking, the whole thing is they're trying to teach, obviously, about peer pressure. They're trying to teach about bullying and, don't fall in with the wrong crowd. And what makes me laugh is the point of the time travel is Bugs is like, look, a couple years ago you were playing in the park. It suspiciously looks like 1957. Disregard that. You're going to run behind this building chasing after a ball that just went rogue. And then behind there is a group of bullies. And this group of bullies, they're going to bully you. And then they're going to offer you drugs. And it made me laugh because I was like, that's when you can really tell that like an older generation had a hand in trying to shape the message of this film.
What do you mean? Your bullies never tried to give you weed after they were done bullying you?
That's the last thing that a bully's gonna do. They just spent their, good money that they just stole from their mom on that weed.
Yeah.
They're not gonna like pick on me and be like, "You smoked that weed, you idiot." Like,
no, never
they're
once.
keep
Not
it
in
for
a lifetime.
themselves.
Yeah, as far as I can recall, all the illicit activities, they've all come from friends. I've never had a bully come up and be like, "Hey, fuckface, want to try this weed?"
Yeah.
I like doing it. Maybe you'll like doing it too. That's never happened.
Do I have to pay you? No. We're going to give it to you for free.
That's right.
Are you only going to give me a little bit so it doesn't have any effect? No, you can have as much as you want and get as high as you want. Boy, that sure sounds like a good deal to me.
Could you imagine going home and just being stoned and like when your mom asks you what's wrong, you're like, "Oh, my friends bullied me and gave me weed." What?
No. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, I don't know. I just found it really funny. I'm sorry that I took that
Oh, no.
a little off road
That's all
because I
right.
know that you wanted to talk about the animation by Wang Animation
Wang
and the
Animation.
high quality of it, the general high quality of the animation throughout this special.
So there was a part, I think it's right after the Michelangelo part, where he goes into his own brain and it just shows them on this roller coaster with the Muppet Babies. I thought that was pretty epic. I really loved that whole entire scene. I mean, it's really like pretty and stuff at first, and then it gets just like worse and worse. Really feeling that, like, again, I know we refer to spooky pastas a lot, but it kind of felt that way a little bit. It like gets continuously darker and darker, and you see like the characters are like starting to freak out a little bit about their surroundings. Like Kermit is in the front. Oh shit, dude.
And well, here's the other thing that I really liked about it. Before I get to the thing that made me laugh about that sequence, I love, and you'll recall, a few years ago, I put together like a thread. It might have been on Twitter. I don't think I ever wrote an actual article about it. But the thing that brings me the most joy in the world is amusement parks and specifically roller coasters in movies and TV and specifically in cartoons. Like when a show comes up with a roller coaster that's not real. So some of them off the top of my head, it's like Space Jam, the Moron Mountain amusement park.
Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely.
love that. Jimmy Neutron, God, what's it called? The Ultra Lord amusement park there. Anyways, they go on the Bat Out of Heck roller coaster, and it's like the coolest roller coaster that's ever existed. The Hey Arnold one where they go and it's like the dinosaur roller coaster that they get stuck on. Remember he gets stuck on it with Harold.
Yeah.
So this, even though it's not like a real fake amusement park, like it's just a roller coaster from hell to illustrate their point, still love it because it's still in that world. So there's another one that I kind of get to add into my list there, my ever-growing list of fake amusement parks and amusement park rides. You mentioned that he is on the roller coaster with the Muppet Babies. So he's on it with Miss Piggy and Kermit, and he's riding with Smoke, the villain. And
Right.
at one point you see Gonzo. But things like go completely off the rails, no pun intended. Because towards the end of it, like they're inside the kid. The kid decides to get high while they're in the kid. So
yeah.
effectively, the Muppet Babies are getting hotboxed
Yeah.
in this situation.
I really did not think about it that way, but you're absolutely right, man. They're all getting blazed up in there.
The only thing funnier than a Muppet getting hotboxed is a Muppet Baby getting hotboxed, because it's that much more fucked up, right? Like, it would be really funny if adult Kermit is getting, a contact high, but baby Kermit getting a contact high, that's on a whole other level of comedy that you just can't write. Like,
It's a win.
that happened inadvertently, and incredible stuff.
Absolutely. Another little piece I wanted to bring up was the stash underneath the bed. I thought was kind of comical. So I keep going back to saying, like, when you're a kid, you don't really know what this stuff is. But I'm telling you what, as an adult, I wasn't sure what some of the shit was in the stash either. It was so crudely drawn. I think it's a bound up thing of cash. There's like a couple little roaches off to the side. Man, I don't even know what else was in there. A box of matches or something. And then there's like 2 or 3 other items in there. I just don't know what they are at all. That's at the point where Alvin and the Chipmunks are looking over it and Simon's doing his explanation of what's in there. And he's like, yeah, this is just marijuana. I was like, but there's other things in there too. Like, what's going on?
There's a spoon in there, and there's that glass pipe that I don't really know. And
yeah,
is that a rubber band or a belt? I don't know.
Yeah, seriously
I mean,
though.
I wonder how far they were gonna take it
Yeah.
before somebody had to step in and was like, that might be a little too much. We can't even get away with that in primetime television, let alone on a children's special here. You gotta lose the heroin spoon.
Yeah. The artist is just like turning around at the guy and is like, I've already got Simon explaining to people what marijuana is. Can we go any further? Is there really any point in holding everything back?
The artist screams at the director, do you want my input or not?
Yeah.
I can get this thing 100% accurate.
I think this will
Just
be good
listen
for the
to me."
kids. I think it will work.
All right. I know that we've kind of run through it, but the last thing, now that we're on the topic of the dangers of drugs, like that's what this whole thing is about, is the dangers of drugs. There is a sequence where he's walking through, I don't remember who he's walking through it with, but basically like a house of mirrors that you would find. And the main kid is like, well, Smoke, the villain, told me that I look fine and I look good on drugs. And they're like, oh yeah? Well, think again. And then they spin the mirror around, obviously simulating what years of drug use is going to make him look like. And once that mirror spins around and he gets a look at his potential reflection, all I could think is that they modeled that after what Michael Jackson looks like in the Thriller music video. And so I'm like, man, yeah, so doing drugs will just turn you into Michael Jackson. Another example of mixed messaging in this special.
It's going to make me Michael Jackson? Like, why wouldn't I want to do this? This sounds like it's a great idea. That guy makes millions on his music, I'm assuming.
If all I've got to do is a little weed and you're telling me I get my own Thriller music video, boy, I guess I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
All right. Wait. I have one final thing that I need to bring up.
Okay.
Because we're shifting now. We've been talking about the special. It's great. So many characters. They're all voiced excellent. The special looks good. I'm going to talk about something now that I noticed. It's right in the beginning of the special. So even if you choose not to watch the entire special, just go to the beginning. There's a scene where we see Slimer from the real Ghostbusters, and in true Slimer fashion, he chooses to eat everything in sight. And the thing that he spies in the little girl's room, in our main character's sister's room, and before I even tell you what it is, I'm just going to say it right now. People, we are at the edge. We are on the precipice of a major discovery here, okay? The Mandela effect over the past decade or so. Well, the big one is what, Grimey?
Fruit of the Loom, whether it has the cornucopia or not, right?
Yeah. So everybody collectively remembers that Fruit of the Loom always had a cornucopia on the label, and that was their logo.
Absolutely.
Fruit in a cornucopia. And nobody has been able to find any old items or logos or whatever. And everybody's trying to tell us that it was always just a bunch of fruit laying flat on a surface. And that was the logo. Well, folks, here it is. The big giant reveal. Slimer reaches for, and what I can only assume to be a nod, a wink and a nod at the Fruit of the Loom underwear company. He reaches for a cornucopia full of fruit and eats it. Why else, Grimey, would Slimer have reached for that if it wasn't, in fact, a thing?
Yeah, you're right. There's no other explanation whatsoever. I mean, it is a cornucopia with that exact fruit lineup on it. I mean, and it's really weird. We talked a little bit about it before we got into this discussion, and like, I wasn't even going to bring it up because I thought maybe I was just seeing something that wasn't significant. But then Derek mentioned it, and I was like, wow, like, okay, so there's a thing there. Like, I'm not just making this shit up. It was in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
The conspiracy runs deep, and it lays in plain sight.
Oh, yeah.
The answers that we've all been looking for, trying to prove that this is more than just some theory or you know, that we've all dreamt up this logo that never existed. I ask you, people, I beg of you, this special was on many a VHS tape back in the day. It was broadcast on all of the major networks at the same time, as Grimey mentioned at the top of the show. And it exists for free on multiple places online. You can go and you can watch it right now. Why would they have drawn that into the cartoon? And I don't want to hear it. Oh, it was a wink and a nod. Or, hey, maybe what we're all remembering is this scene from this cartoon special.
Not a chance.
No, not possible, because I didn't watch this when I was a kid. So it's not like I saw this and I remembered the Fruit of the Loom logo and I got confused and I mixed up Cartoon All-Stars with an underwear logo for the next 28 years of my life or something. Not possible. Not possible.
That's right. I think they used Bugs Bunny's time machine and they're just mocking us. That's what I think.
Yeah. And then afterwards, they gave us all one big old joint. And we said,
is this a
what's
joint?
The big attraction?
He said whilst picking up a roach off of the floor. What? Yeah. Truly crazy.
So yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway here, is that you chose this inadvertently, mainly just because you just wanted to talk about cartoon characters interacting. You know, Alf making a joke about how he was going to eat Garfield, which happened to be a lamp, or any of the other things that we've mentioned, all these other characters. And my big takeaway, this holds the key to our past. We are being lied to, people.
Oh, you are. Absolutely.
We're being lied to.
This is a fun little travel down. I can't really say memory lane because I barely had any memory of it. Really, I honestly forgot about this. It feels like a fever dream that probably shouldn't have happened. I'm not really sure what the general consensus is about the film's impact on kids in the 90s. I'm really not sure if it did well or not. I know it didn't work on me as a kid, for sure. I didn't know what was going on half the time.
Yeah, I mean, at best, you would have seen it and said, okay, and then disregarded it and put it out of your mind, you know? At the worst, it introduced you to crack cocaine and got you addicted for a number of years afterwards, you know?
Like, as an adult, it seems like the perfect thing to watch when you're about to do drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, like a good pregame. It's something special, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a time capsule. I truly mean that. I mean, war on drugs, cartoon characters all coming together, trying to sober up our troubled youth. It's epic, man. And if you haven't watched it before, make sure you do. I'm sorry if you listened to this whole podcast before. I feel like we left enough out, though, that you can draw your own conclusion. You can watch some tidbits that we definitely didn't get to talk about. Definitely give it a chance. It's, like you said, 22 minutes or so long. It's on YouTube, free to anybody who is willing to go to YouTube and watch it.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You got a lunch break every day. Watch it on your lunch break.
That's right.
It'll be the best lunch break you've ever had.
All right, man, I think that's about all the time we have for today. If you look at the clock up there.
Oh, crap. Grimey. I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to need a ride home, man.
Really?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When you ran to the bathroom, this big old bunny talking with a New Jersey accent came in, and he offered me something called a roach. And I took it, and I ate it, not knowing what it was. And gotta tell you, I think it was laced with something. I'm feeling a little kooky.
Did he, like, bring out his little time machine afterwards, or did he just keep that to
He
himself?
called it a time machine, but I didn't want to touch it. It was small.
Oh, never mind.
No.
Never mind.
I
don't
said
even-
no.
You want to know? All right, I'll give you a ride home. Hit the lights. I'll grab the door.
Catch you later, like heck I will. Guess I'm allergic.
And a good excuse is something you never outgrow.
That's my complexion.
When your pals say, let's get wrecked.
Buster up your self-respect.
Go on, push, eject, protect yourself, get up and go.
Be the first one on your block to say.
Yeah, forget it, Doc.
What a nightmare.